That's good.
Oh man, it is Tuesday. I mean, it feels, Sujan, it feels like Monday to me. It's one of those
Every day this week is, well, it's only Tuesday, but yeah, I mean, it's all screwed up because feels like Monday. Last week, Tuesday felt like Monday as well. And I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am right now.
The pandemic has messed up my life. And then my kids have been sliding to home plate like that one inside baseball, that one baseball guy who slid to home plate but didn't get tagged. Anyway, that's like what our school is like. If we can pass, that'd be great because the pandemic messed up our world. So everything feels like Monday all the time. Hello, everybody. It is Tech Chat Tuesdays for Tuesday, June 15th. It's June 15th already, Sujan. How'd we get there?
I don't know. My daughter's last day of third grade, and she's going into fourth grade next year. Time's flying.
She's going to own the fourth grade, man. That'll be it. Like she owned the third grade. Well, we are here to talk about all things tech. First of all, you can look at the video for this. Let me turn on the screen. You can view our content by going to chariotsolutions.com/techcast. You can see all of our podcasts there. You can also hit up our YouTube site. Here comes the screen. If you hit YouTube, Chariot Solutions, get the right name in there. You'll see all of our content there, including all of our Tech Chat Tuesdays. And if you look at our playlist, we got a ton of stuff out there. We are coming up soon with the Philly ETE 2021 content in about a month or two. But we have all 2020 all the way back to like 2009 or something like that on there. There's a lot of stuff there and a lot of interviews that we've been doing and just interesting stuff. So head on over there and check it out. But let's get started with some stuff that happened over the last week or two. By the way, we've switched to a every other week setup here just because we're getting really busy. And we also figured there'd be more news over the summer in 2-week chunks than there is in 1 week. And it turns out there's a ton. So WWDC happened while we were away on June 7th to 11th. Sujan, it feels like there's not a ton of actual major leaps here to me. What do you think?
I generally feel the same. I didn't feel there's anything super major, just a bunch of smaller things within each of those areas. Like iOS 15 has a number of changes and things like that I don't think are shattering, but more around security and privacy and health, things like that. macOS Monterey, I think the interesting part about that, at least from the little I read, was more about what is supported on the Apple M1 silicon versus features that won't be supported on the Intel-based Mac. So it's starting to bifurcate now, and they're starting to clearly prioritize M1 over the Intel-based Macs and what features will be available or not available. And some of them are like graphics related, performance related, but background blurring on FaceTime calls, because FaceTime's trying to become more like Zoom. Like you can now schedule calls and share links, and folks that are not on FaceTime, like on Android platforms, et cetera, can actually participate on a FaceTime call. But just anyway, so background blurring is not going to be available unless you have an M1 silicon-based Mac, which is, people are like, that's kind of funny when you're spending like $3,000 on the Intel one. Like, okay, you're not going to give me background blurring? Like, come on.
Right. I have the weirdest ads popping up, by the way, as a guest right now. So I'm going to just close that out. Yeah, that's one. Here's some other stuff in here. Like there's well, I don't want to open that features list again because it gave me some bad stuff. But anyway, keep going. Sorry.
I think no, it's fine. I just all the only thing I'd say about that was in my quick skim, I did not see anything that was earth-shattering from a developer perspective of something that's support. That's what I was trying to look out for. Like, is there things that are going to affect us as developers that is only going to be available on M1 and not on the Intel-based Mac? And my quick skim didn't reveal anything to that, so that made me feel a little better, at least for now. But it's clear that Apple is now on the M1 train, and they're saying bye to Intel.
I guess the only other thing to think about is all these onboarding of, and I didn't think it was all that interesting. I have an M1 Mac now. I forced myself because I wanted to do a lot of music stuff lately. And so I figured, I'm a nerd and I want the M1 Mac. So I picked up this MacBook Air and it's freaking fast. I'll tell you that. It does not have a fan. So it's like this quiet, cool, fast machine. And they have iPad app support, right? So you can run iPad applications. You can't run everything. It seems like the iPad app developer has to go in the App Store and enable that perhaps, or it has to go through some testing. But I think that'd be something that we might see, maybe customers asking for their apps to be certified for running on an M1 Mac as well. So that's what I'm thinking. That might show up at some point for us. But yeah, what I'm still waiting for is, we got Monterey and iOS 15. At some point, there's going to be enough convergence because the M1 chips in both these systems. So it's not the processor speed that's the issue to run a federated operating system. But when are we going to get like true, multi-process support on the iPad? And conversely, I hope we never get to the point where we have this awful single view tasking view in the Mac where we act like an iPad. I don't want that. I want the other way around, where a power user with an iPad can have like a Surface Book kind of experience,
or the option of both modes.
Yeah, that would be very cool. Yep. So I felt the same way. I felt like it was kind of incremental, but big changes, obviously, internally. It's just that there wasn't some huge feature. And it makes sense. They dropped a brand new chipset. So there's so much they're doing since they're now aligning both those machines to the same chipset. There's just tons of internal stuff to do, I'm sure, too.
The Apple Watch is going to keep getting more and more health features, like, measuring blood sugar levels and like how you're walking, your gait. And it's like getting a lot of different signals to figure out your health. And I think it's things that are getting, some of which will get FDA approval and some maybe won't, but seems to be turning into a like legitimate tricorder at some point in the future.
That's very cool, isn't it? All right. Here's something that I found that I thought was odd. Ohio sues Google, seeks to declare the internet company a public utility. This is the Columbus Dispatch. This seems like a really, really like long shot, right? So the bottom line is that the Ohio, I'm quoting here from the article, and the article is on the Columbus Dispatch, written by Jackie Borchardt. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost has filed a lawsuit asking a court to declare Google a public utility that should be regulated as such. And so he's looking at from their state people seeing that it's anti-competitive and discriminatory, that they're steering internet search to Ohioans. And apparently there's Delaware County, Ohio, just like there's a Delaware County where I live in Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is that just seems to me like a crazy long shot. Well, how's a local, municipality or state going to make any kind of movement on Google that's going to reach anything?
So you would get like a bill from Google every month? You've used X number of searches. Like what?
I can't even. Oh, and it says here the lawsuit does not seek monetary damages. So yeah, that would be like reclassifying a company as a utility. That's just not going to happen. It feels to me like it's a political move to get attention more than it is an actual real issue that's going to get solved, But I thought it was entertaining.
Sounds like Ohio wants to collect revenue from people using Google, is what it sounds like.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, if you're legalese comfortable, you can read this entire pleading. I'm not going to. We're going to move on. But anyway, hey, Columbus is trying to make it, or Ohio is trying to make it so that Google's a utility. Stay tuned. Fastly went down on the 8th, and that's a CDN used by a lot of companies, apparently. And, well, someone, Max Rosen, has an interesting thing on his website, Online or Not. Said, in case you've missed it, for about 15 minutes on June 8th, 2021, Fastly CDN had an outage, taking some of the internet's largest websites down, and they're big websites, right? BBC, Reddit, New York Times. Also, Amazon had its CSS failed to load. So I guess Amazon, even though they're using their own, happens to have their website use CSS on Fastly, which I guess they'll probably change now. Just a guess. But my thing that I love about this is the guru meditation error. And I need to explain what that is. Someone decided to make a 503 error that reported 2 GB of data. 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 Guru meditation and some sort of piece of information. This
Mediation?
well, they meant to say meditation because it was originally Guru meditation error, which they stole this message from. There used to be back in the Amiga many years ago, the Commodore Amiga, a 16-bit microprocessor-based multitasking system that I owned back in the 80s. When it crashed, and it crashed hard, the screen would go down by a third, and there'd be this big red banner. Then it said Guru meditation error and some stupid message that only the developers would know. And there was no internet, so like, what could you do with that? It's just basically my computer's dead. And this is just a rant by someone about please write a decent error message. And it might be cute to you to quote a very old cryptic error message label, but we can do better. Like, we can write in plain English. We can explain what the error was caused by, and is it going to get fixed, and so on and so forth. But what caught me was like, well, there's nothing you can do about it. You have no idea what's going to happen. You have no idea what action's being taken, and you have no idea when it might be back. It's like he's dead, Jim, right, in Star Trek parlance. So, for example, couldn't we put in like our services down for maintenance, things like that? This reminds me of, what is it? Was it GitHub or Heroku that had the really silly error that would show up when it went down? What was it? I think, was it Heroku? GitHub. Okay, it was some sort of animation of something. Was it a turtle or no? I remember it was the fail whale thing. It was Twitter.
I was thinking of Twitter. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, same thing. Like, people, please do good messages.
I mean, sometimes it's hard if it's a known set of errors that you're expecting, then you can write really nice messages around exactly what happened, why, and if it's something unknown, then it's harder to provide a useful error message because the programmer doesn't know that it's an error state that could occur. So it just, whatever exception occurs bubbles up to the top. But in this case, they could have at least provided some more human friendly text, even if it didn't actually provide more information. Absolutely. Yep. All right. There's me getting on my high horse when I write my own bugs really well. Here's another one, Terraform 1.0.0, the official release of Terraform 1. Just that caught my eye as well. So, they're just kind of shoring up things for the 1.0 release. And so now they're going to have, backward compatibility going with major version 1. And there's a compatibility promise. Deal with that now every release. Mm-hmm. I guess that was the issue, right? That would change Terraform a bit every time, and it would break everyone's scripts if they upgraded. And now they're going to start having backward compatibility, which I think is a big deal for them. There's so much Terraform out there. I mean, just imagine the number of systems out there that are provisioned using Terraform. So this is big, both from a stability perspective of knowing now that they're going to maintain backward compatibility, but also that small bugs or breaks can probably wreak a lot of havoc. Yeah, true. Yep. So if you're an AWS person, you might have used CloudFormation, or you might have used Terraform or CDK. There's a number of ways of provisioning things, but Terraform works on that. And Terraform's interesting play Terraform has is it has different backends and features for different cloud providers like Google and Microsoft as well. So Terraform's an interesting animal, whereas CloudFormation is directly created by AWS. This is a cross-platform language with features that can be provisioned across different cloud systems. So check it out if you're interested, but at least now there'll be backward compatibility. Tetris in Clojurescript. This is really cool. So you got to give credit to where credit's due. Sean LeBron, .github.io, built a Tetris clone using Clojurescript. And for those that don't know Clojurescript is basically being able to write Clojure and have it produce JavaScript that's runnable in the browser. We actually have a project where our consultants are writing Clojure on the back end and writing Clojure on the front end with React. So it's Clojure all the way. So this goes through each step of building a Tetris clone, and by the very nature of Clojure and Rimple-based development, you're able to maintain state throughout each step in this thing, and it's building on top of the previous step. So it's really cool to see visually what's happening, and so visually learn Clojure while you're building something in the browser that's a game. So at the end of it, you actually get a full-fledged game I didn't go through the internal, so I haven't stepped down into the actual, like after this, they have like table of contents and actual like steps in coding the whole thing and like what each of these primitives and how you code that in terms of Clojurescript to get those visual effects that you're seeing there. This is more at a high level, Clojure functions, Clojure maps, Clojure data structures, and how you invoke those and construct something to see what you're seeing. But then the full tutorial goes into actually how they implement the graphics and the state changes and things like that on the browser. So it's really cool. And demystified for folks that think like Tetris is a really complex thing. It's not. And things like this is really cool because when you were a kid, you're like, oh, this is so cool. But it's not that complicated, and it demystifies it all.
It has to be broken up into little pieces, and each piece, builds on another. But that's very, very cool. I mean, that's one of the problems I've had with learning Clojure is I just needed an excuse for something to put it against. And a game is a great way to learn things. We teach our React class using a game that we build up. And even though it's kind of a simple game, it's a way of getting some conversation where at least some parameters of what you're working on, and then it's just the tech to solve the problem. So this is great. We should reach out to him and talk to him about this. That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
All right. Sam Altman, prediction, AI. Go ahead. You go.
Sam Altman is currently the CEO of OpenAI, a company, I think, out in California that I think Elon Musk is involved with, that's out to try to keep AI from doing harm to humanity. So they believe in AI, and they're doing a lot of research on machine learning, deep learning, things like that, and general AI, general intelligence. But their charter, their mission is we want to do it in a way that keeps humanity from being harmed and have the technology serve good instead of evil. So he has a tweet here: prediction, AI will cause the price of work that can happen in front of a computer to decrease much faster than the price of work that happens in the physical world. This is the opposite of what most people, including me, expected, and will have strange effects, which I never really thought of it that way, but it is very interesting. What he's saying is development, writing tools, using computer or any, the information economy, information workers. If AI is able to do a large part of that kind of work, the cost of that work is going to go down a lot, and so will its value. But things like being a plumber, being an electrician, having a trade that requires manual dexterity that they have not been able to impart on robots yet, and creativity and art and manual labor is going to become very valuable, and much more so than computing.
This reminds me of every once in a while when I'm really struggling with a tough tech problem. I look at someone else, and when you look at each other and say, why don't we just go and get some landscaping done? Do something, get outside and work in the real world, and maybe it'll end up that way, where computers do a lot of the lifting. Maybe I'll go out and start busking with my guitar. That could work. Interesting comedy thing. I wonder, we right now have this really strange situation that we've had for at least a decade where it's so hard to find enough good people that we have, been able to kind of get and work on projects, and every company's having this challenge. It would be to the point where if there's enough AI applied that a lot of the coding will go away, and it's orchestrating and creating, being creative. I think of the same thing with like musical stuff, right? It used to be if you were going to make music on a computer, in your 8-bit computer, you would write a basic program to make the sound of the music, or a C program to do that. And now we use tools like Logic Pro, and we're, downloading plugins that simulate electric grand pianos, right? And so we're making creative stuff happen on a computer and not thinking about the programming of it. So that does track directly in all sorts of ways, And I got you had to be an expert in Photoshop. So I used to be an expert in Photoshop, and now it's like, well, anyone can apply an effect and sharpen things just by dragging sliders around.
And they can do it on their phone even, which is scary. I had got to this through Hacker News, and there was an interesting thread on there as part of commenting on this was like it's actually, becoming a certified plumber, and it takes a number of years. And like certification and training. It's actually, when I was reading this from them, it actually seemed like it was harder to become a plumber and took more time and effort and training than to become a programmer, to be quite honest. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if things like this shift that way, because the trades are harder to acquire and be trained and good at, and there's a safety component because what you're doing affects people directly, versus most programmers. So and there was another question on there about like people asking about, well, what does this mean for children, growing up now, like 20 years from, like, what fields should they be going in? What should they be studying? Because what if things do change a lot in the next 30 years?
Yeah, and not for nothing, like I guess I should restate what I was saying. Not any negative thing on landscaping, because it's its own art and its own work and talent. It's just that, like, you feel like you're doing something that's not real when you're writing code every day, even though you ultimately are contributing to a project. Sometimes those projects fizz out, or, the company gets acquired, or they change direction, and what you were working on for a year goes away. And,
speaking
sometimes
of the autonomous lawnmowers, there's a company, I forget the name,
oh, wow,
that's working on that right now, where that'll become completely AI driven.
That's crazy. That's just crazy. Cool topic. Very interesting. All right. Well, we talked about Monterey, so we can skip that. Slashdot, what do we have here? Scientific advances from deep brain stimulation to wearable scanners are making manipulation of the human mind increasingly possible, creating a need for laws and protections to regulate the use of the new tools, top neurologist said on Thursday. This is on Slashdot by editor David posting this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really have anything beyond what you just said, other than, like, I really thought I was reading a science fiction book from the 60s when I was reading. I'm like, proposing neuro rights and what can and can't be done to manipulate the brain. And as things become more connected, and I mean, it's amazing that they're scientific. It's not like a tongue-in-cheek article. Like, they're actually proposing this, and they want to start putting a framework around protecting people's rights in this. It's just, wow. I can't believe we're at a point that this is actually being discussed.
They're imaging activity in the brain for all sorts of different things that you do. So they're seeing where the message flow is going. And, I mean, and they've just finished completely mapping the human genome. There's so much science being done, and it's accelerating. Yeah. And it's going to open up these new things. We've had these, don't clone humans, provisions for years, but that's cloning a human, and that's crazy. But yeah, what about brain control? It's the same ethical, consideration.
Yeah, because like what? We have 8 billion humans right now. We're going to have like 11 billion by 2050 or 2100. Oh. So do we really need to clone people? No, but can we just control the excess of people I shouldn't say excess, but clone the already billions that are out? I mean, mind control the billions that are out there, so they're basically cloned? Like, that's scary.
The Phillies are controlling me now. This is mind control. I'm going to try to bat, and I will miss. All right. Here's an interesting thing. Right to repair bill. These are kind of gaining steam in different commonwealths. This is kind of the same thing as like trying to make Google a utility in terms of the reach. But there's a lot of people talking about forcing manufacturers to make it possible to repair things. Now, I don't know how far you can get. They glue these things together in such a way that you can't physically open it up without doing damage in many cases. Definitely iPads, definitely Surface Books and things like that. But would it kill them if it made it possible for you to remove it and get the battery replaced? That's the kind of thing they're talking about here. So this is the S4104 in New York State to try to get companies to allow people to repair things and allow companies to offer repair services for devices without being, frozen out by like the systems by the vendors, like, for example, Apple Care and things like that.
Do you remember the name of the guy who works for John Deere who spoke at ET, and we did a pre-game with him, and he was talking about the tractors and all that, and how the newer things are very tough for any farmer to fix on their own. So they have to go to like a John Deere approved mechanic or send it out to get it fixed. And sometimes they don't get it back for a month or two. And unless they have backup tractors or older, they're shit out of luck, because that's the whole season right there. So the impact the agriculture industry, and because they need to be able to repair stuff on their own.
And think of the waste. Like, so for example, I've got enough devices where the screen has shattered, or the battery is finally failed on it, then I've got a stack of them every couple of years to take to Best Buy or Staples to recycle, and if we could just replace the battery without spending X $100 because we're out of warranty, then we could just recycle the battery, and not recycle the entire unit. And it's a brick. Someone could use it.
Yeah. Hopefully this would bring up the cottage industry of the local repair guy again. Like there was a guy back in the day when I was growing up could repair anything. I'm not like we take a lawnmower, gets fixed. Microwave to him gets fixed. TV gets fixed. Whatever. The guy could do anything. And hopefully things like this open some of that up again, where now you have local experts that can repair some things, and you can go to them instead of a very expensive corporation.
Complete side note, but this kind of tracks, is there is a set of boutique YouTubers out there that do like reviews of repairing old equipment. So there's this guy named Mr. Carlson. He has this show called Mr. Carlson's Lab. He's out of Canada, and I forget the woman's name who does the. She's a tube amp repair person. And there are all these people out there that like show you their entire tear down and repair and fix things. There's a lot of that still going on out there. It's really hard to do when everything's glued together and all the screws are with screwdrivers that are impossible to get and that kind of thing. So I really hope someday this will change.
I'll have to check that out. I didn't know about the Mr. Carlson thing. That sounds cool.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, he's really interesting. He'll take apart like, broadcast receivers and TVs and amplifiers and you name it, but and make things work again, tape decks. So interesting stuff. But this is the kind of thing, like we really lost our ability to keep things in service. And that's just, there's so much e-waste because people can't get things upgraded or fixed. We used to go and get our computers. I had a computer chassis for over 10 years. I just kept upgrading the CPU and memory, just new motherboard periodically. And now, laptops made that impossible. Tablets are even worse and phones are even worse than that. So it would be nice to see. This seems to be a higher value and more important thing to try to solve as a country and a world than, making Google a utility. But, same kind of like pushed from government side, it might have a real uphill battle because of all the people fighting against it from the companies. Okay. You have another one here, about ransomware. I think this is you, right?
Yeah, so this was they were talking about a ransomware attack targeting the Teamsters Union in 2019 that the FBI, that they reached out to the FBI and said, hey, this is happening. And FBI basically had recommended to them, just pay it. It's not going to get fixed. This happens all the time. And we just look the other way. We get requests. Ransomware attacks are going on all the time on large and small companies, many of which are never reported or publicized, so we don't know about. And FBI generally just says, pay it. We can't do anything about it. So Teamsters Union refused to pay it. So they did not pay it in this case, and they rebuilt all their systems, and they had backups of data. So like, they basically gave a middle finger to this hacker, and we're like, okay, we'll rebuild everything to be more secure and restore stuff from backup data. So whatever you want, we're not paying you. That's not the interesting part. Actually, the interesting part is the FBI's response to them and be like, oh, this goes on all the time. We're not going to do anything about it, and we can't do anything about it. So just pay them whenever they ask you to pay.
That's really kind of disgusting to think about. Like that's where we are right now as a tech community. Yeah. And there are hospitals going offline and power companies and meat producers. And, there are these hackers, whether they're overseas or in the United States, who knows. A lot of them are overseas in Russia and places like that. And we're kind of paralyzed because we haven't figured out the tech to make things, to apply the tech consistently to make things safer and protect against this stuff, And
it happens all the time that we don't even know about. We're saying an unknown number of companies and organizations have been extorted without ever saying a word about it publicly. So
yeah.
I don't know how many things we use that are actually already had breaches that we don't even know about. And like, I'm just thinking of the power grid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Wait till that happens.
Yep. They fry the power grid, or they disrupt like water services somewhere. And, people could do real damage. And I think this is the kind of thing that states need to really, countries need to be really serious about. This as a defense issue, an infrastructure issue for the country. Yeah. Anyway. Wow, that's something, isn't it? And the public stance has been don't pay, right? That's what I've heard. Like when they report it in the press, the FBI will say we don't recommend they pay, but privately they're saying just pay. So that's not great. All right. Wait, it's back. I think I opened it up twice. Okay, next one. How hackers use Slack to break into EA games. This is mine. So it turns out that good old social engineering strikes again. Basically, what happened was a bunch of hackers wanted to get into electronic arts to like get the code for games and like get free games and things like that. And all they had to do was get on the Slack and then convince an employee over Slack to provide a login token, and they broke in. This is old Kevin Mitnick Hacker 101 stuff, right? They just basically said, yeah, well, we're in here and we really need to get our token. We don't have a token. And someone said, yep, no problem. And it's always the way people break in. They find a weakness in the person that they're talking to figure out like, oh, well, I'm really an authorized user, and they get it. So now what they've done is they store the source code for FIFA 21, the source code for Frostbite engine that powers all these games, internal development tools. They have about 780 gigabytes worth of data, and they're advertising it for sale on forums.
That's a lot of IP they stole, man.
Yeah, it's bad. Here we go. Representative for the hackers told Motherboard in an online chat that the process started by purchasing stolen cookies, unbelievable, being sold online for $10, and then using those to gain access to a Slack channel. And so basically the cookies have the person's login details, and then they can go in and message the support person. We lost our phone at a party last night. This again is, I keep bringing up the name Kevin Mitnick, but Kevin Mitnick was like the first hacker that was like prosecuted and thrown in jail for hacking. And he stole the code to like, I think it was the code to like the VAX operating system from Digital Equipment and a bunch of other things. And he was, attacking the phone companies and got all their code. So anyway, yeah, bad stuff. And it all starts with social engineering. So not a bad idea to learn about what that is and really kind of educate your tech support people about how to, avoid getting, hit by this kind of thing.
Did anyone raise their hand and say, I stole the cookie from the cookie jar?
Not me.
The reason they called us that song when we were kids. Now I understand the value of the song.
Yeah. And again, that's Joseph Cox on vice.com. All right. You brought this one up, interpreters and compilers. I think you did.
I was saving this for the end of the show, but that's fine. Just as a parting thing. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, we're good. No, this is the end of the show. We've reached the end of the internet.
Okay. This is from the 80s. I don't know if you know this show, Bits and Bytes. Do you remember that?
No. Computer Chronicles, I know from the 80s, which all of them are online, and they're hilarious. But anyway, go ahead.
So this was like I think it was like a short mini cartoon in the 80s that would come like between commercial breaks or whatever. But this one is about teaching kids the difference between interpreters and compilers. It's definitely worth. It's very nostalgic. It's totally worth a watch.
Oh, that's so great. That is so great. Yeah, I love this kind of thing. It's like it's so like dates everything. Like here, the person he's got a suit and tie. You can tell this is not now. Software engineers are not that organized in their clothing choices anymore.
Right. I love how everybody thought back then that robots and androids would be like prevalent everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And now it's what, 30, 40 years later. But if you want a real laugh too, the Computer Chronicles is hilarious. And I believe this is now all online. We might as well hit this one up too. It's playing. Stop it playing. But we're talking like all the way back to like the early 80s, and people are showing off their, K-Pro Model 2s and stuff like that.
I remember this.
Yeah. I thought it was cool back in the day. Was there a Muppet in there? Christmas buying guide from, whatever year that is. Anyway. Okay. We've had enough fun for the day. I got to get back to regular work. So if you are interested in subscribing to the TechCast, if you run across this thing, ChariotSolutions.com, TechCast will get you there. You can also find this, and you can go to our podcast page under Resource Podcast. There's a subscribe link here. But also if you go to iTunes, if you go to Spotify or Amazon Podcasts or anything. We're all up on those, so you can subscribe there as well. We'd love to have you. If you want to send us feedback, hit us up at TechCast on Twitter or techcastfeedback@chariotSolutions.com. And Sujan, we are hiring, right?
Yes, we are hiring. Thanks for mentioning that. So if you guys are interested in learning more about Chariot, we're hiring for multiple positions, senior software engineers, Java, Python, Node, AWS, senior data engineers, Python, ETL, AWS. And then we're also looking for iOS and Android senior engineers as well, Swift or Kotlin. So if any of that strikes your fancy and want to learn more, please reach out to me or Ken or anyone, and check out our website at chariotSolutions.com/careers.
There it is. All right, great. Well, that's it. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Everyone enjoy the end of the rest of June, and we'll catch you in the very beginning of July or whatever it is. I guess it's June 30th. I guess it's going to be back again, or 29th. Can't add. That's enough for me today. I'm out. See ya. Have a good week.
Take care, everyone.